Yeah, in general, I don't need mics because...
Yeah, this is for recording mainly.
Okay, no worries. So this is a new talk of mine, so I will appreciate if you have any feedback. I'm Nicolas Fränkel. I've been a developer for a long time, doing consulting, and I had enough of projects, of managers, of customers, schedules, crunches, so I became a developer advocate. The problem I want to talk to you today is security policy. Security issues in general costs millions or even billions, and among them, there are like stupid, crazy stuff like, oh, we didn't configure access policy for this person, and the API is available for everybody, and now our all data has been stolen. And in this case, you have two, well, let's say companies have two main behaviors. First, they really want to fix the problem. Second, they want to have plausible deniability. Like, we did due diligence, and unfortunately, it didn't work. What I call checkbox-driven compliance. In both cases, however, probably there will be audits. And just a word about security in general. Nobody cares about security. Let's face it, nobody cares about security. And the reason for that is that if you have a very good, very strong security, the business doesn't see it. The business only sees when there has been a security breach. So I would, if you are in such context, and if you want to improve the security of the company, or let's say the awareness, I would advise you to use a simple risk management system. So you identify the risk, you identify the probability of the risk, some consequences, the actions that you can take to counter them, and most important at all, the decision, yes, no, and who has taken the decision. If you start having people who take decisions accountable, then you will probably improve the way that the company sees security. Anyway, today I want to handle a simple use case. You have a policy that allows users to request salaries. And of course, you can request your own salaries. You can request the salaries from your direct subordinates, but otherwise you shouldn't access the salaries of anybody else because that's confidential. And I've worked in, who here is a Java developer or JVM developer? Okay, for all others, I will try to have a little bit of context. So I've been doing Java since a long time. And in this world, there is something called the Spring Framework. Spring Framework is very widespread. It's not a standard, like there is a standardization body, but it is the de facto standard. There is a standard, a real one, which is called now Jakarta EE, but it's quite unwieldy and it's very high level. And then all the implementation adds different, let's say, workarounds to work with them. So I love the Spring Framework. It's designed around an IOC container and it does the job. In this context of the Spring Framework, there is a module which is called Spring Security, which is one of its basic components since ages. And it caters to all your needs. So it does the authentication, authorization, everything. The problem is that most frameworks, they work with role-based access control. And here, my use case is, okay, I can access the salary of myself and anybody of my subordinates. And that's not really role-based anymore. Now you need to work on data. So for that, you need custom codes. And you have a couple of alternatives from the most simplest to one of the hardest. I use the simplest because I'm super lazy. So I used the authentication objects. Here is how it works. So you have, will it work like this? Yeah, it works like this. Amazing, right? Yeah. So that's the problem. When I start to play with it, the people don't care about my talk anymore. They say, wow, that's so cool. I want the same. Anyway, so I want to get somebody's salary, and I will check the authorization. So first, I will check if there is an authentication token. If there is no token, I don't get further. Then I will check by doing a select from a database, which is stupid, but again, it's a simple demo. And then if there is no account, not possible. Then if it's my own salary, it's okay, I can get it. Otherwise, I will need to check into another data store to see if somehow I'm accessing the data of my subordinates. I check the hierarchy. If it's okay, I return to O. If it's not authorized. That's not really hard. I mean, from a flow point of view. The code, however, is a bit more involved. So I'm running on Docker Compose. I will start it just to show you how it works. Docker Compose app. So I have my app. This is, as I mentioned, a Spring Boot app. I'm using Kotlin. So I'm trying to tie into the theme of the conference. It seems that Kotlin is part of the theme of the conference. And because I'm using Kotlin, I'm able to use the DSL to configure Spring and not only XML or annotations, which is super good. Because now, even if you have never done any Spring security, you can still see that, OK, we will authorize this request. So this pattern, we need to be authenticated. We disable a couple of stuff because we are not using a web app per se. We are just using an API. And the most important stuff is this token authentication filter. So we will need to authenticate. How do we authenticate? As I mentioned, I've put everything into the authentication, which might not be the best stuff around, but it still works. So first, I will check the credentials. If it's not, no credentials, bad credentials. Then, because I'm using a token, I will try if there is a token in the user database. So no hashing, no nothing. It's just I found the token, clear case, no problem. If I find somebody, then I have authenticated the accounts. If the account is the same as the last path, that means I'm checking my own salary, I will return and I will say I'm authenticated with this person. If not, I find into the employee repo, so another data store, and I try to find the employee. And then I check if I am the manager of this employee. If yes, everything is cool, I'm authenticated. If not, I don't have enough credentials. Yes?
Checking if you're a manager, is that just checking if you're an ancestor in the hierarchy?
Yeah, exactly. So this is how my database looks like. So it's direct. Again, I need to have direct subordinates because I don't want it to be too complex. And this init SQL is here. So it looks like this. You have your employee stuff, and here you have the person and possibly your manager.
I see, okay.
So it's not a very GraphQL relationship. It's just simple. I have a manager. I can access them. So here we can see that, sorry, I have 30 minutes. It's not a lot, so I need to be very, very fast. I will remove the V and the, because it doesn't make any sense. And I have 2 dashes now. And I make it bigger. So Alice can access Alice. That's normal. I can access my own salary. Now I check Alice can access Bob. No, I'm not authorized. Bob can probably access Bob. And Bob can can check Alice. Yes, because if we check in the database, we know that Bob has Alice as their direct subordinates. Great, amazing, it works. But how do you audit that stuff? How do you audit this code? This is Java code, meaning it will be compiled, then it will be put into a jar, and then it will run somewhere. and that's the problem. It will be very hard to audit. And then I'm talking about Java, then there will be Scala code, which will be using another framework, and Ruby, and whatever. So we need something to be a bit better, to be a bit more auditable. Oh yeah, it can be also inside a container, which doesn't help at all. So we have a couple of ways to do that. The first is we can have observability. So every time we do something in the code, we will send an event or write a log, and then we can check what happens. It's good if you want to check about your running system. It's not that great if you have something to have an audit. So first you need to deploy, you need to check, and what happens? So you cannot do it beforehand. So for that, if we really, really want to do something and not to have checkbox-driven security, we need to come up with something better. And this something better is called policy as code. So now everything is as code. We had infrastructure as code. Now we have policy as code. And the thing is we can have versioning just as regular codes and not buried deep inside our application. And we have auditing, and we have reviewing. And there are a couple of tools available already. So I don't know if you were in the not the previous, but the before previous talk. It was a long, long talk, and it was much more detailed about that. Here I will use open policy agents. And I let you read the stuff because I've been told that you never read out your slides out loud. So basically, the idea is unified tool set and to decouple policy from the service code. That's the most important thing to remember. You want to decouple your policy from the code itself, which makes sense. So how can we use it? So we need to change the flow. I'm sorry, I'm old, so I'm using UML. I don't know if it hurts you, but I hope not. So instead of checking the employee database, then we will check OPA. So we will send data to OPA and check, okay, what's the decision based on what I sent you? How do we write the policy? Well, that's where it starts to hurt a bit. There is this language called Rego. It looks like nothing that I've ever seen before, but this is the exact same policy that I've written before in Rego. So first, we see that, we will get somehow the hierarchy. We will set it to the employee variable. Very important, by default, everything is disallowed. And then we allow only if the input pass, and we match the pass to finance salary user. Or we allow if, so we declare a variable username, we match the pass finance salary username so that we know what username is. If in the employee's hierarchy, so employee is data hierarchy, if it matches username. So there are a couple of unknowns in this code. Basically, there are two unknowns. The first one is data. And data is your static structure. So that's what I've been written in the database before. And here I need to offer it as JSON. And the second thing that is unknown is input. And input is basically what we will send to the open policy agent. So now if I do the same, so I need to change my code, and because I'm super lazy, everything is already under Git, so I just need to check out the revision. I will just stop it. No, not this, like this.
You're not live coding, man. What the hell?
Sorry, I am not?
I expected more. I'm sorry.
You expected more? You wanted me to live code everything?
Yeah, of course.
I don't. So now I still have the same as before regarding the authentication stuff. So here it didn't change anything. But now to check the authorization, so am I allowed to access this path, then it's just a REST call. And I can have I send the data inputs and I receive the data outputs. So those are two data structures. I will have enough time, that's cool. Here I send the user and the path, and that's exactly what I have here. I send the user and the path. And for the data outputs, I get a decision output, and it has a result output, and it's just a simple Boolean. So it's nothing mind-blowing. And now I can do the same as before, here. You see, it's slightly slower, because now I'm doing a network call, but I still get the same stuff. So Alice can access Bob. No, Bob can access Bob, of course. Bob could access Alice, and Alice couldn't access Bob's salary. So still very good. Great. There is a slight issue at the moment, is where do we store the open policy agent, configuration, and I've lost it. Yes, here. So this is the code that I've shown you. This is the static data that I've shown you. And I only have one thing to do, is I need to bundle them in something that open policy agent can understand, and serve them through a web server. And because I will need something else afterwards, I'm not using a web server. I'm using Apache API 6, which is an API gateway, and I will just get back to it just afterwards. I need Apache API 6 needs something called etcd to store its configuration. etcd is a distributed key value store. So this is my new Docker Compose. You can see OPA. This is exactly what I've shown you in the previous UML stuff. Okay, so we can do better. However, I still have the authentication part in my code, so I still cannot check everything. Well, let's do something better. Sorry, I didn't mention. This is the way that normally every time I do a change, I need to create this bundle that I've told you about, this JSON and this Rigo stuff, and to serve it via Apache API 6. So normally here, it's gone again. Every time there is a change, it should create a new bundle, and OPA asks for this bundle every time on Apache API 6. So Apache API 6, I work on the project. Everybody knows the Apache Foundation. Yes?
Question.
Yes, sure.
Yeah. So does that imply that? Oh, sorry. Does that imply that you need to recreate the bundle whenever the database changes?
That's the point. And that's what I didn't implement in the demo because I'm lazy.
All right, thanks.
But I will show you how, well, I will show you one way because the rest I had time to implement it. Yeah, so every time you change the hierarchy, you need to regenerate the bundle. But you can still keep the employee's data store as a source of truth. You just need a way to detect that when there is a change, you recreate the bundle. So Apache Foundation, everybody knows about the Apache Foundation. So Apache API 6 is an Apache Foundation project. It's an API gateway. It's based on the famous Nginx engine, so very good reverse proxy. The problem of Nginx, especially Nginx open source, if you want to change the configuration, you need to switch it off and on again. There is no hot reload, which is a bit hard if this is the component that is the entry point into your information system. So for that, there is something called OpenResty, which is a Lua engine that allows you to change the configuration with Lua. The problem of OpenResty is that its configuration mimics the configuration of Nginx, and it's not super maintainable. For that, we have Apache API 6. It offers you abstractions such as routes and service, and everything is plugin based. So I was telling you about authentication. We still miss authentication, so we want to move authentication out of the codes. And for that, we will use Apache API 6. That was, I used it before just to serve a simple file. It integrates with many different authenticator, third-party authenticators, Keycloak, OpenID Connect, whatever. Here I will use the simplest one, which is Apache API 6 will have the clients directly configured. So it makes our application or our system much simpler. So now you have Apache API 6. We try to authenticate. If it doesn't work 4 or 1, then we ask whether we can get the data from OPA. And let's go. So let's do it. I will stop it. I will move to my next master. I start it again. And now my code, which I don't find again, is much simpler. I don't have any authentication or anything else. I just have this simple validate OPA stuff and a simple filter, which I don't find anymore. The routes are here. Yes, here. So that's my code now. And just I have a filter that validates if the OPA policy is OK, it allows me to get it or not. And we can check again that everything works as expected. Oh, no. Oh, that's not. Yeah. Now I need to go through the API gateway. Sorry. So if we got 401, but of course the payload that is returned is not the same because now we ask the API gateway. However, if we can access Alice wants to access Alice, and we've got the same as before. And now I implemented a job. So here you see that I didn't actually do anything regarding the configuration of the users in Apache API 6 because I created a job, and it should be here. It's called consumers that directly reads the database and creates the identities in Apache API 6. And if you are interested, it's based on change data capture. So basically, every time there is a change in this database, it will create the correct identity in Apache API 6. And that's the end of my talk, and I don't have any time left anyway. So it's still not perfect, as I mentioned. I still have to create the bundle by hand. I hope I will fix it in my next time I do the demo. And the biggest issue, in my opinion, with this approach is that Rego is not a super widespread language. It's not also the best ever. But as you've seen, there are a couple of alternatives, so you don't need to use open policy agents. So, summary, audits are part of the business. I'm afraid there will be more and more audits, either because companies want to really fix the situation or because of plausible deniability. It's impossible to have audits if your policy is written, because the people won't be able to know every language. Here I've used Kotlin with Spring Security, but the combination are too numerous. It's impossible. So it's good to settle on something that can be read by everybody. And OPA and Apache API 6 can help with that. You can follow me on Twitter, even though I think it's going to be dead soon. You can follow me on Mastodon, on Blue Sky, because I don't know what the next thing will be. If you're interested about the code, you can have a look at GitHub, but I'm using a bit.ly link so I can see how many people are actually opening it. And if I got you interested in Apache API 6, you are welcome to have a look. And I'm on time. Okay. So I have stickers, and if you have got questions and you don't want to get in the queue for the lunch, you're welcome to ask them. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.